Florida sticking with Billy Napier into 2025. The right decision? Locked On SEC starts right now.
You are Locked On SEC, your daily podcast on the Southeastern Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And what's up, everybody? Welcome into Locked On SEC. It's great to have you guys along on today's show. And breaking news on Billy Napier sticking with the Florida Gators into next year. I'm Chris Gordy. Thanks for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Shout out to everydayers who are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. And reminder, today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return at FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com today to get started. All right, we got to start with the big news over at Florida as the Florida Gators third-year head coach Billy Napier has gotten a vote of confidence from athletic director Scott Strickland. The endorsement comes as the Gators continue to navigate a very difficult schedule this year. And Napier's record at Florida is 15-18 overall, 8-13 in the SEC. And they will head into this weekend traveling to top 5 Texas to go play in Austin. Now, Florida's 4-4 on the season, 2-3 in the conference, and they have an uphill battle to reach a bowl game. The Gators have to win 2 of their last 4 games, and this includes on the road to top 5 Texas this weekend. They will host top 20 teams LSU and Ole Miss before they will close at Florida State. Now, the good news is Florida State is struggling, so that one does look like a game that is winnable. But Scott Strickland's statement coming out, as we've seen these past several weeks, the young men on this team represent what it means to be a Gator. Their resolve, effort, and execution are evident in their performance and growth each week, building a foundation that promises greater success next season and beyond. Florida's commitment to excellence and a championship caliber program is unwavering in these times of change across college athletics. See, I just reading through between the lines here, they're basically saying, look, early signing day is a month away, and we want to make sure that we get some kids into this recruiting class. And it's hard to recruit kids when there are questions about the coach's future, right? So Strickland went on to say, I'm confident that Billy will meet the challenges and opportunities ahead. We'll work alongside him and support any changes needed to elevate the Gator football program. Again, it's a good timing for Napier because, you know, he was kind of, I wouldn't want to say dead man walking, but he came into the season as one of the coaches on the hot seat in the SEC. And look, if you look at what the Gators have done in recent weeks, you know, they opened with that debacle against Miami in the opener. They beat up on Samford. I remember Graham Mertz was hurt. That was the first taste we got of DJ Lagway in a bigger sample size. Then they got blown out at home against Texas A&M. Now, it turned out A&M's turned out to be a pretty damn good team, so that's not a bad loss in retrospect. And Miami, by the way, they're awesome too. So really, those 2 early season losses are actually good losses. Then they go on the road to win at Mississippi State. Then they came home and they were underdogs against UCF and found a way to win that game. And the defense played above its head. They played lights out. They shut down that Gus Malzahn offense at UCF, held them to just 13 points. Then they went on the road to Tennessee, lost in overtime. Of course, the controversial play on should they have gone for 2 in regulation and, you know, gone for the win there rather than settling for overtime. Then the next week, they hosted Kentucky and just absolutely routed them. Then they had their bye, and then this past week off the bye, they played, as good as you can play against the Georgia Bulldogs in a game that was, you know, what did they do? They tied the game with 7 minutes left in the fourth quarter, 20-20 with your third string quarterback in basically because DJ Lagway got hurt. And so you were leaning on the Yale transfer and Aiden Warner. So yeah, I mean, they played their butts off. Now look, you end up giving the ball away and, 2 quick touchdowns for Georgia. You lose by 14, makes it look way more lopsided, but yeah, the effort was there. You had a lead at halftime over Georgia. So, good effort. But they're telling you right here, like, this is really, in my mind, this is a move about recruiting. Our guy Brandon Olson, host of Locked On Gators, recorded a quick short. Here was Brandon's thoughts on the move to keep Billy Napier.
University of Florida Athletic Director Scott Strickland has announced that Billy Napier will remain the head coach of the Florida Gators football program, despite a 4-4 record in year 3 and despite a 15-18 record overall. This is something that, over the past month we spoke about on Locked On Gators, that it does feel like the University of Florida administration might accept, hey, they're playing hard, hey, they're a young team, they've got promise, which is all true. I just think year 3 is enough time to know, hey, unless he makes some pretty significant changes to his coaching style and to his coaching staff, he is not going to be the head coach to win a national championship at the University of Florida, which is all that really matters. We will talk about this on Locked On Gators. We have talked about this on Locked On Gators. And the recruiting class next year is going to go through the same thing of this year where, hey, he's on the hot seat, let me not commit there. So it's going to be interesting, but hey, you reap what you sow, right?
That again, Brandon Olson sharing his thoughts on the move. Now, the big decision here to me is DJ Lagway. I mean, he was, top quarterback recruit. He's a freak, and he's looked very good. And by the way, we'll have an update in just a second. But if he is not, dramatically hurt after that hamstring injury that is suffered in the Georgia game, Florida's going to have a chance to pull off an upset here in these next couple of weeks in any game that Lagway plays because he's that good. But and my thought is Lagway's so good. I mean, and I've said this all since the offseason. If you fire Billy Napier, you lose DJ Lagway. I know he signed an NIL deal with Florida, but there will be other takers out there. There will be other programs and teams that will offer DJ Lagway a big NIL deal to come and get him. And I've felt this way the whole time. If you fired Billy Napier, you were going to lose DJ Lagway. Lagway committed to Billy Napier and the Florida Gators. So by sticking with Napier, I think it's a good vote of confidence that you will likely keep DJ Lagway from entering the transfer portal. Now, look, he may do the thing that some kids did anyway, just put your name in just to do it, just to talk to other schools and see what they want to offer you. But I feel pretty good about what the Florida Gators gave DJ Lagway. And again, I think he likes the connection with Billy Napier. A couple other things here. Ross Dellinger kind of mentioned Billy Napier and Dave Aranda. They both entered this season on the hottest of seats. Both may end up remaining. He said, not coincidental, a year from now, schools will be permitted to directly pay players more than $20 million annually. Napier's buyout was going to be around $25 to $26 million. Dave Aranda's at Baylor's $20 to $25 million. So look, you got to stick with the guy that you went after. You gave him a big dollar figure and said, this is our guy to lead us. It hasn't been a complete debacle with Napier, Florida. Now under Dave Aranda at Baylor, that has been a mess. But, look, they were judging him from the moment he stepped on campus. And it's just tough. Sometimes it takes a couple years to build a program. And we've talked about how difficult the schedules have been last year and this year for Florida. They're playing a murderer's row of opponents. But our buddy John Williams, who does Locked On Sooners, he said, given the direction of college athletics from a financial standpoint, it's going to be a lot harder for programs to drop big buyouts. They're already having to allocate $20 million to player salaries. And this is where it gets sticky, right? Like the fans are like, stop asking us for more money. We're all tapped out. We're giving you all we got. And now you're looking at, oh, well, if we fire him, we got to pay a massive buyout. We can spread it out over time, I guess, however you negotiate that. But then you got to pay the new coach a massive amount of money. And this revenue that's being revenue split now is going to go towards paying players moving forward. So you got to be smart with the dollars. And then on top of it, advertising and all that. I know some, I've heard from some schools that the advertising dollars allocated to signage in the stadium. Some businesses have said, well, we're going to spend some of that money on NIL instead. It's, you got the collectives. It's a big jumbled mess out there right now with all the different places to allocate and everybody's sticking their hand out going, give me money. It's a tough road to hoe. So look, Napier and the Gators preparing to take on Texas this weekend. Now, Billy did give a promising update on DJ Lagway. Suffered that hamstring injury in the first quarter against Georgia. And on Wednesday, Billy Napier said Lagway's progress this week has been touch and go. He said, but the quarterback wants to go this week. He did note that Lagway was able to practice some this week. He said, he's participated in portions of practice and that he wants to go. So that's good news there. He's practice in some capacity, DJ Lagway, and he wants to go. Now, he was listed as questionable in Florida's Wednesday injury report. But third-string quarterback Aiden Warner, he was 7 of 22 for 66 yards with no touchdowns and that late interception. Does not seem promising to go into Austin, Texas, where the Longhorns have the number 1 total defense in the country and are allowing just 11.5 points per game. Now, DJ Lagway has shown flashes of brilliance. If he does go, I give Florida a chance. I think they can hang in that game with Texas. But one other note on the Gators, Florida's going to play the rest of the season without their wide receiver, Trey Wilson, according to Zach Abelverde of On3 Sports. He is undergoing hip surgery, according to a report. The hip issue is a congenital issue, was uncovered over the course of the season. Playing through it only gave Wilson more problems as the season went along, so they decided it was time to do that. And Billy Napier did describe the injury as a lingering injury, said it's been an issue that he's had for quite a while, and so he will be shut down the rest of the year, so the Gators will have to go without him. But look, they've had some other guys who have stepped up, particularly Elijah Badger has been very well, Jamari DK, Aiden Mizell, the freshman's been very good for them so far, so I think they got enough weapons, but nonetheless, Billy Napier, is it the right decision to stick with him? I think it is. I think the team has played hard these last couple weeks, and my counter has always been, who are you going to get? You know, the big name has been Lane Kiffin. If Lane loses to Georgia this week, he's got 3 losses already at Ole Miss. You know, he may be looking to jump ship. Maybe the Ole Miss fans are, hey, we'll get rid of him. We don't care. But then Florida, do you really want, is Lane Kiffin really going to take you to the next level? If he's losing, 3 games this year at Ole Miss with the most loaded roster he's ever had, what's he going to do at Florida? So I think you stick it out with Napier. You give him next year, let him recruit this class, see what he can do. Give him another year with DJ Lagway. Schedule gets a little bit easier next year. We'll see what they can do. I think it's the right move, whether you agree or disagree. Our guy Brandon Olson hates it. So, I'm sure most Florida fans are probably not on board with it either. So we got plenty more to get into, including a Texas wide receiver no longer on the team with the top 5 Longhorns. We will get to that coming up next right here on Locked On SEC. Hey, thank you guys for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. We want to remind you guys about one of our sponsors here, Robinhood Gold. With Robinhood Gold, you don't need a silver spoon to eat up the financial favors of the 1%. Robinhood Gold allows others to get the rates and perks usually reserved for the high society. And now the resourceful individual with Robinhood Gold can earn the very liberal rate of 4.5% APY on uninvested cash and be rewarded with a handsome 3% retirement boost on an IRA account. Robinhood Gold provides the privileges of a high net worth for any net worth. These generous benefits are now available for only $5 a month. The new gold standard is here with Robinhood Gold. Sign up at robinhood.com/gold. Terms apply. For product-specific disclosures, visit robinhood.com/gold. Investing involves risk. Rate may change. Gold membership is offered by Robinhood Gold LLC. This episode also presented to you by our friends at FanDuel. And look, you can tackle this weekend, the college football weekend, NFL weekend with FanDuel. They are America's #1 sportsbook. And right now, we're telling you guys about this. New customers, if you've never played on FanDuel before, you can bet $5, get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL, college, all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Visit FanDuel.com today to join. Started with $150 in bonus bets. If you win your first $5 bet, that is at FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, continue on here. Locked On SEC. Thank you guys for making us your first listen every day. Shout out to everydayers. Keep coming back and checking us out. We will have a special edition show tomorrow. We'll have our SEC squad show drop later today, but we'll have a special Friday edition show we will do from the campus of LSU in Baton Rouge ahead of the big LSU-Alabama game. But first, some other news to jump into, and some news over at Texas in Austin as they are losing one of their wide receivers from this season. Apparently Texas sophomore wide receiver Jonte Cook is no longer with the program. On the season, just 8 catches, 137 yards, and 2 touchdowns, was averaging over 17 yards a catch. So big time, playmaker there in limited action. But he is not longer exception since that Mississippi State game back on September 28th. So did not factor into their games in their month of October. And in recent weeks, we've seen a rotation. Isaiah Bond, when he's not been hurt, he's been one of their main guys. But we've seen DeAndre Moore, Matthew Golden, the freshman Ryan Wingo has been awesome. Senior Silas Bolden coming over from Oregon State, he's been very good. And those guys have seen their reps increase. Now, the term that they used that came out yesterday was, or earlier today, was that he was dismissed. So at first there was a report that he was no longer with the team. And then I think it was Anwar Richardson had the report that he was dismissed. So again, promising talent, was in that 2023 recruiting class. 5-star from DeSoto, was along with Arch Manning in that group, and ended up a top 3 recruiting class in the country. But it was like I said, big time playmaker. We'll see what happens with him and his future and what the reasoning was for his release. But if you look at the receivers on the year, it's actually tight end Gunnar Helm is now the leading receiver for the Longhorns on the year, under the leadership of Quinn Ewers and, of course, Arch Manning, who filled in for a couple of games. But Isaiah Bond, their leading receiver with 380 yards, 4 touchdowns. Matthew Golden right behind him with 332 yards and 4 touchdowns. Ryan Wingo, the freshman, he's over 300 yards with 2 touchdowns. And DeAndre Moore, he's only got 249 yards, but he's got 5 receiving touchdowns on the season. And, of course, they've involved Jaden Blue, the running back, and Quintavian or Trey Wisner as the other running backs, pass catching running backs. So, yeah, look, it's a pretty significant name for the Texas Longhorns to lose for the season. Keep in mind they lost CJ Baxter, one of their starting running backs, for the season before the year even started. And now you lose a receiver. Look, I think they'll be fine with Bond and Golden and Wingo and Moore and Bolden. Like, I think that group is going to be fine. I'm a little surprised, Mari Nyblack, that, I think he's been banged up, but thought he was going to be a big time playmaker coming over from Alabama, but only played in 2 games for them so far. Only has 3 catches on the season. So, he's one to keep an eye on as the year goes along, what the deal is there. All right, over at Ole Miss, one other injury update. Trey Harris been battling that injury for a couple of weeks now, the star wide receiver from Ole Miss, an undisclosed lower body injury, and the Rebels released their availability report on Wednesday. They had 26 players listed on the report, and Trey Harris is listed as doubtful for their game against Georgia this weekend. He has missed the team's last 2 games. He's still 4th in the country with 987 receiving yards. That's what's so impressive, is he's missed 2 games and he's still top 5 in the country in receiving yards. Leads the Rebels in catches, leads them in receiving yards. He's 2nd in receiving touchdowns. Transferred to Ole Miss back before the 2023 season from 3 years at Louisiana Tech, and been a big-time go-to guy. So that's one to keep an eye on. And then I saw wide receiver Jordan Watkins is doubtful. They listed running back Henry Parrish as out. He was one we were keeping an eye on, saying, he was banged up. Trevor Etienne at Georgia's banged up. And, man, that's a top 5 rusher in the SEC, Henry Parrish is, and he's out for this game. So Ole Miss, they're going to have to find somebody to carry the workload for them as far as running the football. And then, if they don't have Trey Harris or Jordan Watkins, they're going to need somebody else to step up in the passing game as well. I mean, the hope is they would have at least one of those guys catching the ball. And on the defensive side, J.J. Pegues, their big D lineman, he's questionable. Remember, he's that guy that they use in those big jumbo sets when they have 4th and inches or 4th and goal. They like to give it to him and just let him, the big fella, fall forward. Edge rusher Princely Amon Mielin and Walter Nolan are both listed as probable. Princely is 2nd on the team in sacks. And Pegues has scored 6 touchdowns, like we said, kind of using him in that fullback role. But the big game this Saturday afternoon, 2:30 Central, 3:30 Eastern in Vaught Hemingway Stadium. Ole Miss versus Georgia, going to be a big one. And speaking of that matchup, when we return here on Locked On SEC, we'll give you what the CBS guys are saying on their official expert picks on the two biggest games in the SEC coming up this weekend. More Locked On SEC coming your way here in just a sec. But first, I want to remind you guys, today's episode presented to you by our friends at Hims. And guys, if you ever feel like you need a little extra boost in the bedroom, it is time to stop worrying about your performance and get Hims. Hims is changing men's healthcare by providing you with access to affordable sexual health treatments from the comfort of your couch. Hims provides access to a wide range of doctor-trusted ED treatments like chewable hard mints, Viagra, Cialis, and their generics for up to 95% cheaper. The process, 100% online, so there's no need for uncomfortable doctor visits. Just answer a series of questions on their website, and a medical provider will determine the right treatment option for you. If prescribed, your medication ships directly to you in discreet packaging for free. No insurance is needed. One low price covers everything from treatments to ongoing care. And with hundreds of thousands of trusted subscribers, Hims can help you find the ED option that works best for you. Start your free online visit today at hims.com/lockedon. That's HIMS.com/lockedon for your personalized ED treatment options. Hims.com/lockedon. The products mentioned are chewable compounded products which are not approved by or verified for safety or effectiveness by the FDA. Prescriptions require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if appropriate restrictions apply. See website for details and important safety information. Subscription required. Price varies based on product and subscription plan. That's hims.com/lockedon. All right, one more segment here on Locked On SEC, and CBS Sports analysts sharing their opinions on some of the big games happening this weekend. Of course, one of the biggest ones, it is Alabama at LSU in a game that we, pinned as a de facto playoff game. This is a big one for both Brian Kelly and Kalen DeBoer, and the panel of their four analysts split on this game. Two of them chose LSU, and two chose Alabama. Aaron Taylor and Rick Neuheisel, they're going with the Crimson Tide. Aaron Taylor saying, I like Alabama in this game a little bit more. They're coming off their best rushing game of the season against Mizzou. And he said he doubts LSU's chances due to the poor play in the second half against Texas A&M by Garrett Nussmeier. He said, it's hard for me to get past Nussmeier's play in that last game and get that out of my mind. Neuheisel kind of agreed and said, when you factor in LSU can't run the football, or last in the SEC in running the football, that puts extra pressure on Garrett Nussmeier. Meanwhile, Randy Cross and Brian Jones, they both picked LSU because they're at home. Of course, Alabama won the last meeting between these two last year in Tuscaloosa, but LSU and Brian Kelly did beat Alabama 2 years ago when Nick Saban was the coach and they came to Baton Rouge. Now, entering this game, Alabama 6-2 with a 3-2 mark, and Tigers are 6-2 overall with a 3-1 record in SEC play. Just to kind of add a little bit to it, look, I get it. The last time we saw Nussmeier, he had that terrible second half against A&M, but he's back at home now. You expect he's going to be a little bit more confident and playing better in the friendly confines of Baton Rouge. You also factor in Brian Kelly is undefeated so far as LSU head coach at night in Tiger Stadium. His one home loss as head coach at LSU came 2 years ago when Hendon Hooker in Tennessee came in, and that was a day game in Baton Rouge. So there's something about the mystique at night. Remember, they played a tough game against Ole Miss a couple weeks ago, found a way to win that game in overtime. So there's something about the mystique. Remember, 2 years ago against Alabama, they scored late and went for two in the win, and they got it to is Jaden Daniels connected with tight end Mason Taylor. So the other mention they threw in there, I think it was Aaron Taylor said that, or no, Rick Neuheisel said LSU can't run the football. I agree. They haven't run it consistently, but Caden Durham has shown flashes to true freshmen. And keep in mind, Alabama is third worst in the SEC against the run. They rank somewhere, I think, in the 80s against the run nationally. So, you combine that and say, yes, LSU has not run the ball well, but look at the defenses that they've gone up against in recent weeks. A&M is one of the best run stuffing defenses, and they couldn't do anything about it. Now, those numbers got skewed this past week as Rocket Sanders ran all over them in South Carolina, but I think we'll know early. If LSU runs the football against Caden Durham or with Caden Durham against Alabama and they're getting 4 or 5 yards a carry, then it's advantage LSU and makes the day a lot easier for Garrett Nussmeier. Now, if they're in predictable throwing, downs where it's like, okay, we know they're running the football and Alabama can pin their ears back and blitz and put some extra guys in the coverage, play a little zone, whatever it is, then, advantage Alabama. So we shall see. But as we mentioned there, the 4 analysts at CBS kind of split. Now, they also predicted the Georgia Ole Miss game. And Rick Neuheisel, Randy Cross, Aaron Taylor, and Brian Jones all agree that the Georgia Bulldogs will find a way to get out of Oxford with a win. Brian Jones saying, I'm going to go with Georgia, all because of that defense. You can't block all of them. Georgia has the number 12 total defense in the country. They're allowing just 17 points per game through 10 weeks. Randy Cross agreed. He said Jackson Dart isn't going to put up video game numbers this week. He also praised Georgia for their ability to close out big games. Aaron Taylor said Georgia just elevates when they get into these big matchups. They find ways to rise up to the occasion. And then Rick Neuheisel, he said, look, the frenetic defense you saw in Austin a couple weeks ago when they beat Texas, that's on my mind. And they have a chance to take this up another notch playing in Oxford, another road hostile environment. So pretty interesting, clean sweep there. They're all going with the Georgia Bulldogs to beat the Ole Miss Rebels. And what's interesting is Alabama on the road at LSU, the slight favorite, Georgia on the road at Ole Miss, the slight favorite. I feel like one of these teams is going to pull off the upset this weekend. Don't know who it's going to be, but either LSU will beat Alabama or Ole Miss will beat Georgia. I feel like one of these upsets is going to happen, but we will see. We'll have full coverage tomorrow. We'll have some special guests joining us from Baton Rouge on Locked On SEC as we bring you full coverage ahead of that game, but we'll also preview all the games happening this weekend as well. Thank you guys for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Shout out to everydayers. Come on back and check us out tomorrow as we get you ready for the games of the weekend. And hey, for your second listen, you can check out some of our other great podcasts, Locked On Bama. Luke Robinson does a great job with that show. Brandon Olson, who joined us earlier in a short video, he's got Locked On Gators. He's talking full reaction to the Billy Napier news. Billy Napier coming back in 2025. Hey, we saw him at SEC Media Days and said, will Billy Napier be here next year? Yes, Billy Napier will be at 2025 SEC Media Days, confirmed by Scott Strickland and the Florida Gators. I'm Chris Gordy. This has been Locked On SEC. You guys have a great day. Check out our SEC squad dropping later today, where you'll be able to hear our roundtable discussion on the games this weekend. I'm Chris Gordy. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow right here on Locked On SEC.